Saratoga Springs Planning Commission meeting for April 13th, 2023. I've asked Commissioner Burns to lead us in the pledge. I'll turn the time over to her at this time.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes. Roll call for this evening. We have all the planning commissioners except for Commissioner Ryan, who is on his way. He'll probably join us a little bit later this evening. And the next thing is on the agenda is the oath of office for a new planning commissioner, Scott Hill, and that will be administered by Nicolette Fike.
I state your name.
I, Scott Hill,
Having been appointed to the position of Planning Commissioner,
having been appointed to the position of Planning Commissioner,
do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity. Thank you.
Have you signed this?
Let me get the money shot.
Yes, we'll turn around and pose.
Thank you. Okay, and there's a technicality in the state law we have to address before he can join us. All right. The next item on the agenda is a public input. Time has been set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or issues that are not listed as public hearings on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. There are 3 items that are public comment items this evening. The IADU Talus Ridge plat change, the crossing at Saratoga Springs, and amendments to Title 19. So if you have comments on items other than those, this is the time you can come up and make comments. I'll go ahead and close the time for public comment, and we'll move on to our first public hearing this evening, and that's the Talus Ridge Plat 1 Internal Accessory Dwelling Units, IADU Map Amendments, Title 19.20, applicants Bryant Baird, located at 507 North Pinnacle Lane. This is presented by Sam Stout.
All right, good evening. All right. Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay. Yes, so for the IADU map amendment change for Talus Ridge Plat I, just a little bit about it. It's currently in the R110 residential zone, and then it is located just west of, sorry, let me oh. There we go. Okay, so it is a 2-lot subdivision, and it is located just off Foothill, just west of Foothill. And one of the things we needed to get approval by the city fire marshal and the city engineer because the width of the road is 26 feet and 29 feet is the current road standard. And so from both the fire marshal and our city engineer. They both did approve due to it meeting off-street parking, as well as there are no other current, none of the either adjacent subdivisions or plats have our IDU. So this is the only one. Yeah, so are there any questions?
Okay, since this is a public hearing, I'll go ahead and open this up for public comment at this time. I will close the public comment as there's no one else given his comment. And then I'll ask the applicant to please state his name and address for the record.
Yeah, Bryant Baird. I'm at 507 North Pinnacle Lane.
Okay. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the presentation?
No, I'm happy to answer any questions should there be any, though.
I'll turn this over to the commission for comment and questions at this time. Commissioner Kilgore.
I think in the other documents that we received, I think it said this, but any chance that the other residences in the other lots in that area will ask for an IADU in the future? Or was it that they were disqualified to begin with?
Yeah, so they meet all the code for IADU, but the only thing is they do not have right now a separate entrance, which is required for the basement apartment. So they are currently not planning on having an IADU, but if they decide to do that and to construct a separate entrance, they meet all the other standards. And so they are good to go there.
And the city fire marshal and the city engineer, their approvals assumed, well, I don't know if it's assumed, but did it take into account that that other residents might request an IADU in the future? And it's still okay with the road widths?
Yes, because right now, both of them do meet the off-street parking requirement with either enough space in the driveway or a third car garage. So both of them do.
Okay.
Meet that.
I think that was all explained in the packet, but I just wanted to make sure that I understood it right too. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Any other comments from the commission? I have one question. So one of the things I read in the fire marshal's comments was talking about turnaround. And you can barely see it, but it looks like that street will eventually, that's not, right now it's a dead end, but it's going to eventually connect to something else, right? To another development?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, it will eventually connect down. Pinnacle will go down to Evans Lane in the long term. So it will essentially be a secondary exit to the town neighborhood.
Okay. And that's all I have. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion at this time.
I move to recommend to the City Council approval of the Taos Ridge Plat 1 request to amend the IADU map to designate that neighborhood as IADU approved as outlined in Exhibits 1, 2, 3, and 4 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated March 30th, 2023.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second from Commissioner Burns. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item, item number 2, the crossing at Saratoga Springs Village, Plan 3A, major amendment located approximately 801 North Redwood Road. Eric, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Shinsato, but
Shinsato as applicant. Kendall Black will be presenting for the city.
this isn't Eric. This is, you're the owner, correct?
No, but I'm not the representative of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. So this is a major amendment because it's adding signs that are not currently allowed in the code. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. They're requesting 3 curbside pickup signs and drive-through preview board. Currently, there's not one there. A code allows for a drive-through menu board of up to 45 square feet and another sign of up to 10 square feet per drive-through lane. They only have one drive-through lane, so they can only have the one. They're asking for a preview board closer to the entrance to allow for customers, as the line's backing up, you can look at the menu. And just for speed of service to get the cars through quicker. There's other businesses around that they come out and ask you for your order, but you don't even know what you're ordering yet because you haven't even got to the menu yet. So that they're trying to do that. And then they're only asking for 3 curbside pickup signs, where currently in the code, we don't have that in there one way or the other. So that is all they're asking for. That's the elevation. So currently that's 16 square feet, which is about a third of what is allowed for a full preview board, just to give you an idea of how small it is. And then the sign is rough, the curbside pickup signs are roughly the size of parking signs. Are there any questions?
Okay, so this is a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open up for public comment at this time. I'm going to close for public comment on this item. Would you like to add anything to the presentation? Could you state your name and address for the record first, please?
And,
Address of the business is fine.
okay, it's 801 North Redwood Road, Saratoga.
Okay.
And, no, I mean, just, that will be very helpful for, just the flow of the carts when they go and see the menu, and especially, you know, our city, we have moms with multiple kids in the cars, and, you know, everyone wants something different. So if they take that extra minute or two to see what they want in the back, and whether it's the mom or the husband, and that will just facilitate the flow and for the business, and obviously for our customers.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Kilgore?
The packet has this as an administrative. Is this administrative or is this legislative process? Since it's an amendment request. Okay,
That's got to since.
then I won't ask my usual administrative question then. Okay. I appreciate, thank you for including a summary of the previously approved exceptions, yeah, that, you know, we've done before. So does staff feel that this request is in line with the other amendment requests that we've had in the past, like from Fat Cats and Les Schwab? Is it more or less in line with that, or are we just making just exceptions everywhere? Or, no, I shouldn't say that. Are we making exceptions that have nothing to do with?
She was around
I
when
guess what
some of the
I-
other ones came around and I wasn't.
Okay, I guess what I meant to say was not exceptions everywhere, but are we making exceptions based on just completely different standards, or is it pretty consistent in how we approve these kinds of requests?
So right now, the code doesn't allow the preview board, except for in this particular scenario. I think there may be one other business that was approved with a preview board. And then the parking signs, everybody's doing them, and these are the first people that have asked for approval.
So,
Everybody's doing them. We're going to be adding a standard to our code. We had drafted that and brought that to you, and it went to council and got tabled for some additional questions. So we'll be coming back to you, but these are the first, this is the first applicant that's asked for approval.
okay, because I was thinking if those, you know, first of all, preview signs make a lot of sense. And so I wonder if maybe that's something that we should also consider, because why make it, you know, why does it have to always be an exception and we have to go through this extra step? If most of them are, well, many of them are going to ask for it anyway, especially for traffic control, or not traffic control, but for just better flow. So I'm just wondering about that. And then I don't remember that we went through that with the other sides, but that also makes sense. It seems like people are already.
We did take preview boards here into the council across the citywide, and that actually got denied at council. But they may be willing, you know, it's really based on they'll consider your recommendation, then they'll make a decision. So I don't know, perhaps they'll consider it with just one, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought just a few commissions ago, commissions, meetings ago, didn't we actually have a preview board request as well?
Right.
Yeah, and so it just seems like it makes sense. But if.
Did we approve that?
The planning commission recommended approval. That was going to be a code amendment for all of the commercial zones, but the council didn't agree with that.
Okay.
Their reason for denial was that there's too many signs throughout the city, so they didn't support that change. But then, we don't know if they'll support this or not, where it's just one and not citywide.
Yeah, I mean, I get that about size, but I think a preview board is just so limited in
Yeah.
visibility that it
We-
seems to make sense,
In the community plans, we have approved additional signage. So this wouldn't be unique. It's like we approved additional signage for Fat Cats and Chick-fil-A and a couple other businesses through that community plan, village plan, we have approved signage. So it's not something we haven't done. This is a different request in a different scenario, but anyhow, we have done that in different situations.
Okay. And I'd like to ask the applicant, if this is not approved, how would that affect, like you said, the traffic or the lineup and all that? How would it affect you guys?
I think the traffic probably won't be a problem. I mean, we have a spacious parking and space for multiple cars at a time, unless we get insane busy, which probably it's not gonna happen anytime soon. I guess the biggest fear for us is that, all the people will probably, choose, different options just because they have that ability that we currently don't. And that's our biggest fear more than anything. And like I said, I have family myself, and, just get in there, and it's just better for our customers' experience.
Do you have preview boards at other locations?
Yes, we do.
Do you have other locations that don't have preview boards?
We also do a couple of the traditionals, the ones that are not drive-through. They don't, but the ones we drive-through, that open in the last 2 years, they'll have a previous board.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you for those answers. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. We'll go with Commissioner Burns and then Commissioner Barton.
So my question is related to the pickup signs. So what was the holdback on the pickup signs from the city council?
They were not opposed to it. They wanted us to look and see what other cities were doing. And they wanted us to consider whether or not we should require additional parking stalls. We did look into what other cities are doing, and none of them are regulating this at all so far.
Okay, yeah, because that's kind of my thought too. Like, I really appreciate that you guys are bringing this through the correct process. And more so, I think this is something that we need to discuss as a city instead of this individual applicant. But the pickup signs, yeah, especially when they're the closest ones to the restaurant, it feels like it's just taking up an extra space and creating more. But realistically, it's not, right? Like, no?
It's all perspective, so it does seem that way to some people, because then it's taking up, because people picking up could park anywhere in the parking lot and walk in, but then if somebody's not picking up, then the parking stall is sitting there. So it's all perspective, so either way you look at it, it's probably okay, you know what I mean? We are seeing some businesses that designate quite a few. When we do bring a code through for this, which will actually be probably at your next meeting, we're wanting to put a cap on how many they designate for that.
Okay.
We don't want to require extra stalls because that would make all of our current businesses non-conforming.
Yeah.
So we just want to put a cap on maybe how many they designate for that.
Does this current application meet what the city has in mind percentage-wise?
That's a good question. Do you know that? Okay.
Yeah, it would.
Okay. Yeah, that was all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Barton.
So have we, I guess my thing is the extra signs you're driving through, right? I was thinking some of the other ones out there. So Chick-fil-A doesn't have an extra one as you drive through. They just have, I'm trying to think of the ones out there, have them, ones don't, and if it's actually like affecting anything. Because I agreed to one point that we're going to have a gazillion million signs out here, right? Because there is a lot of, it's very, what's the right word? Everything's just like right there. And so if we keep allowing all these extra signs, then we are going to be overrun with signage. But then I also agree with like the flow of, the going through the line and stuff like that. But I'm trying to think of all the places I've been trying to like grab something from a place just to try all the new places out here. And I don't think a lot of them have this. So I guess I don't know. I mean, I can see the advantages, but I don't know if the advantages are going to outweigh like the over craziness of signs. So I guess that's kind of my thought about it a little bit. That's why I was wondering if we approved the last time when we talked about it. I can't remember if we had or not, because I don't remember having these same concerns about it. I mean, I guess that's not really a question or a comment or anything like that. Just like, is it really going to offset enough that we are willing to put like, so every business comes in here and asks for this, right? Just to help with the flow a little bit. Then we do have this overabundance of signs right in the middle of our city. And so, I mean, but then like, they're not super visible, but you say that and then you get 20 more and then you do have like a gazillion signs. And not that I don't love the businesses and stuff coming in here. But I guess after that, I don't know if I would not approve it anyway, right? Like, I don't know. This one's a hard one for me. I was just thinking about it. And then when Sarah made a few comments, I thought about it even more. So I was reading through it this week. And I don't have a business, so I don't know how necessary, if necessary the right word to use right there, I don't know how necessary it is, or if it's just like, hey, we hope this is going to help things flow a little bit better. And it probably does, obviously, right, as you're going through there. But I don't know. I'm going back and forth on this one, and I don't know. Okay, I just had to share my thoughts a little bit about, I don't know if we're going to keep getting people in here just wanting it. So like you had said, should we just have the city figure it out, right? Like, and then we come back and then we don't have to worry about it at this level because it's what everybody's doing, or they have the chance to if they want to. Do we know like what businesses out there are doing this?
Well, our code is, our Title 19 doesn't allow it. So while we have approved additional requests for signage, I don't know that we've approved one like this.
Yeah, so it makes me a little bit, I don't know.
So currently you could add one that was 10 square foot
Oh, right.
because you get your 45 square
Right,
foot
yeah.
drive for each lane.
Right.
And people have used that 10 square foot for different types of signs, not
Oh.
necessarily a preview board.
You do
But
see-
other ones do have the additional.
Okay, like it just tells you maybe the deal of the day or something like that. Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about? But this is, they want an actual preview board that has like the entire menu type of on it. Is that the difference with this one compared to some of the other ones?
It's a little, it's smaller than the regular menu.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a small side, but yes, we want to add some pictures and
Yeah.
something quick view for
Just
the
to, I agree with that, the flow and stuff like that. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm back and forth on this, but I just wanted to ask those couple of questions and,
For spatial reference, I mean, this is 16 square feet.
Right.
And right now they could do a 10 square one. So
yeah. So it's
that
just a
much
tiny
bigger.
bit bigger than what we
And
were
this gives you the
asking.
whole menu.
That helps a little bit, because I didn't realize that they could do the 10-foot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Me
Well,
and my
10
wife
square feet
and
and,
5
yeah.
kids drive through the menu, or drive through. That would
Okay.
help with speed of service with, I mean, I see that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barton. Commissioner Wilden, you keep pointing at your button, but you didn't push it. Do you want to say something? Why don't you say something?
Something?
Okay, thank you.
No, the thought I had is I'm very appreciative of them coming in and going through the proper channels. I would hate to any way penalize them for this when so many other businesses are going about it improperly. So that would be my only other concern.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilden.
Thanks for the opportunity to say something.
Yes. Commissioner Kilgore.
That preview board, I think it was in the staff packet, but is it illuminated?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So it is illuminated.
It's internal, but yes, there's light.
Okay, so it's not like an LED screen. It's just the content, and then it's illuminated from behind. Is that what
Yes, if you can see the picture, so basically there is like a box, so the light is inside.
Yeah.
So when you get close, that's when you'll be able to see it.
Okay.
But if you're from the distance, you can't.
Yeah, it's not like a TV screen that's
Yeah,
really bright
no.
at night or something. Okay, yeah. Okay, so thank you for that. And then I have to say that when again, I can't remember what it was, but when we discussed a preview board for another business, I remember talking about, I think it was Coffee Creations or something, where I go to, every, and I didn't even realize that they had a preview board on the building. And so it just shows that sometimes it's just really not visible, because it is just directed to people who are driving right up to it, especially when it's attached to the building. So I was surprised that for all the hundreds of times I've been there, I didn't even notice that. So, not to say that I don't use it, because I always order the same thing. So I don't have to look at the menu. I always order the same. But that just said is it just isn't visible enough to me to have noticed it. So I actually have, and plus what the reasons that you give for the traffic flow and such, and people just being, it's more efficient. So I think that's okay, the preview board. I'm not really so sure about the other ones. Just because, so we have ADA, we have the 10-minute pickup, or the to-go pickup, and then we have the 10-minute only, and it's just getting to be the whole line of parking in the front. Just seems to be like nobody can park there unless you have a special cause. And so, but that's your business. That's not me. As far as just having a line of ADA and all the 10-minute parking and all this. After a while, it just gets to be just a line of signs in that first parking area. But again, it's, the aesthetics are yours, not ours. And so if you're fine with that, I don't really know if that's necessarily a problem. So anyway, I just wanted to add that as far as the preview board, I have no issues with it at all.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. I think there's definitely a need for the curbside pickup signs. That's really exploded in the last couple of years, and I know a lot of people use it. I use it occasionally at places that I know will bring stuff out in a timely manner. Otherwise, I go in. The preview board, I know I've used these at places, especially at like some of your bigger chains that have longer lines, and it's nice to have a preview. But my wife always reminds you have a phone. You can look at the menu on the phone. So I can go either way on the preview board, but that's the only comments I have. If the commission doesn't have any other comments, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. So I move to recommend approval of the Crossing Village Plan 3A Amendment 2 with the conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wilden. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Burns. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Looks like that passes unanimously. All right, now we're on to the next item. Item number 3 on the agenda is amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, chapters 19.02, definitions 19.04, land use zones 19.8, home occupations 19.20, and IADUs. So Sam is going to present that for the city.
Yes, thank you. So the proposed amendments are to add definitions in section 1902 for short-term rental and long-term rental, and to amend the definitions for bed and breakfast and dwelling. And it will clarify that the short-term rental and long-term rentals are allowed, and that short-term rentals and bed and breakfast are not included within the definition of a dwelling. And then also in Chapter 1908 of home occupations, the proposed amendment is to reference heavy commercial zone in relation to prohibited uses. And the changes clarify that land use is solely permitted in heavy commercial, office, warehouse, and industrial zones prohibited as home occupations. So for the definitions, it just cleans up the definition for bed and breakfast and clarifies that one or more meals will be served per day. And then for dwelling, we're going to clarify that short-term rental and bed and breakfast are not included in the definition of a dwelling. And then for long-term rental and short-term rental, they are pretty much the same definition, except for with long-term rental, the rental is offered for 30 consecutive calendar days or more. Short-term rental is 29 or less.
Okay. Thank you. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up for a public to make comment on this. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Justin Earl, 2630 Canyon Road. I just noticed short-term rental, the definition is rental for 29 days or less, for compensation or not. That's quite similar to the definition of what a hotel would be. We're on the agenda tonight with a proposed hotel. And I see that short-term rentals are not permitted in any zone or conditionally permitted. So this feels a little confusing where we're...
Oh, well, we would call a hotel a hotel.
I guess it'd be helpful to understand what the difference is. For us, with our hotel, we plan to utilize multiple channels of advertising and marketing. Those include hotels.com, bookings.com, Travelocity, Airbnb, Vrbo. Those are all legitimate channels that hotels put their inventory on all channels. So I just want to make sure I understand, are we prohibiting different advertising channels, or are we just saying this is an owner-occupied home that's trying to be rented as a short term? It's just some clarity could be helpful. And we would hate to see a restriction for someone running a hotel on how and where they can advertise. The hotel market is hard enough as it is, and if you take away some of the most popular channels for advertising and marketing your product, that could significantly impact the operations and the viability of hotels. So, thank you.
I would like Fred to comment if that's all right.
Well, let's close public comment and then we'll go ahead and comment. That's how we've done it in the past. So as soon as I close public comment, then we can answer and address any issues the public brought up. Last call for public comment, and then I'm going to close public comment. Okay, I'm going to officially close public comment, and I'll turn the time over to our city attorney, Frederick Donaldson, to answer the question, short-term versus hotel.
Well, so what I wanted to, can we go back to the definition? Okay, so what we could do, assuming that I don't have the definition of hotel in front of me, maybe we could pull that up and we could read it together. I don't believe that this would conflict with that, but we could clarify in this definition that it does not include a hotel, and then that would take that concern away.
So we could add that to our motion to include that in the definition of short-term?
You could.
Okay.
I do have a hotel definition if you'd like me to read that.
Let me pull it up and then I'll have you read it. I'm just getting to the code.
Isn't there also a difference in that one would be in the residential area, like the short term, whereas a hotel would be in a commercial or,
If you want to go to the next page, short-term rentals are prohibited in both residential zones and in the non-residential zones. If you see well, you'll have to look at it.
Can you zoom in? I can't.
Yeah, I will. Let me, yeah. Okay.
So hotel means a building containing guest rooms with only interior access in which lodging is provided for compensation.
So I think that Fred has a good point that we can just say excluding hotels in short-term rental.
And the definition for hotel is clear enough, I think, so that by saying excluding hotels, that would answer it? Okay.
Yeah.
In the condition, it's part of the motion, right?
Can you go back to the definition again? Because it did look like,
You mean for?
yeah, for short-term rentals.
Yeah.
It says a property that is occupied, possessed, or used. Oh, okay. Never mind. Yeah, I think just adding that clarification would be the way to do it.
Can we ask, does that clear up your concern? Is that okay? If, like,
Yeah, I'll permit it.
The other thing I wanted to say is we don't have any code related to advertisement of,
Right,
Yeah.
we don't
About
say-
why there's
so we don't have anything related to that.
Very
And the
confused.
state code even restricts that, us from using listing on short-term rental sites for our enforcement purposes. So we don't have anything restricting advertising.
So tell us what the state code says.
It just says cities can't use the fact that somebody is listing a place for short-term rental
On Airbnb or
for
Vrbo.
enforcement purposes.
Doesn't allow that.
Yeah, the state doesn't allow that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can't go find a listing in our city and
Right.
then go enforce on them,
Okay.
We have to have a complaint from another source.
Before. Okay.
right?
I don't think right now, because I'm public and this isn't really my issue, so maybe on our turn, I can explain in more depth, but my only concern is we're in a zone that's a mixed-use zone, and the ground floor is anticipated to be hotel, and we do have interior corridors, so it's accessed as the definition is interior. Our operator has told us that they specialize in flexing inventory, so we have units on floors 2, 3, 4. I mean, if we're at a peak 100% occupancy, they said we'd love to be able to flex and bring more units into the hotel pool for those high occupancy times. Now, technically, those upper floors are accessed from the outside instead of an interior corridor. So for our purposes, excluding the definition of hotel might not work. Maybe if you excluded something within a hotel, a zone that permits hotel, that might work for us, because it's still, I know that I'm asking for a lot, but
Well-
if a hotel is permitted in my zone, then residential is not really there unless it's one of these mixed-use zones. So it seems compatible. It seems like it could still satisfy what you're trying to prohibit is STRs in a dwelling, a neighborhood, or wherever else. So for our purposes, if we have the ability to flex inventory, that's what we're trying to do. So we can talk about it more during ours, but that's.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you.
We have to choose on the code now.
So any other comments from the commission now that we're completely confused?
Yeah, I am confused, 'cause although the discussion could be later for that particular issue, we're trying to figure out what to do about the code right now, so trying to figure out what are we supposed to add.
I would still direct us to add excluding hotels to short-term rental.
Okay. leave hotels to.
So the motion needs to exclude hotels as part of the short-term rental prohibition thing.
Okay.
It doesn't have to, but I think it's a helpful distinction.
Any other comments or questions from the commission?
I guess maybe I'm just still a little bit confused, so maybe if we wait till the other item, right, that'll clarify things a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, it's,
Commissioner, I was go-
Yeah, that feedback did make it a little tricky as far as this goes. And that information isn't information that we've had before, as far as that goes. So that's contradictory information to what we had heard previously, and that may cause a concern. So I don't know, let's stick with this code amendment.
and just go with, okay.
And
If I may, how about we?
I was going to say, I wanted you to
Let's
say something.
table this or continue this and until after we hear the other one, so we get clarity on what that one is. We can come back.
We do have flexibility when we hear this, so we could hold off on it and not take a vote until at the end of the meeting.
We can do that. I just want you to be aware that the council has expressed concern that that's what that building would be, and that's not what they want, and we were told that's not what it would be. So the information that was given is contradictory to what we've received previously. So I'm a little concerned now, so.
I do see that we probably have a need, because it's not in our code presently to prevent short-term rentals from happening. So I think we need to get this at least into a pending state of some sort.
There's a concern about short-term rent, the nature of short-term rentals so there's just a general concern about the nature of short-term rentals. And if there's going to be any drug issues associated with that. So that is something that we've actually been trying to avoid in hotels or hotels that allow that. And we were told previously that that wasn't going to be the case for this particular situation. So we're just getting conflicting information. And sorry, this is throwing this discussion off because it's now intermingling with that discussion. And then there's information we received that we hadn't received before.
Because I would have thought that, I would have like approved this and been like, that looks good. I like
Well,
that.
and it's fine to continue this discussion after that discussion, but just so that everyone's aware, I mean, anyway, it's a little bit flustering at the moment because we were told that what the applicant just said was not going to be happening, so.
Commissioner Wilden, you had rang in.
The question was answered.
Okay,
I do have a question.
go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, so about short-term rentals, say, let's say as part of a residence, what's to prevent someone to, rent out for less than 28 days or whatever, but then just keep doing it for 28 days with the same renter?
There's not anything to prevent that.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be like a contractual thing for a long-term rent or anything like that?
Right.
Okay. Okay, so that can happen. Okay.
So,
Commissioner
in-
Burns.
sorry, Under dwelling, on part 92, if you can go back to the definitions, it says, dwelling means a structure designated for occupied by one family, does not include short-term rentals, bed and breakfast, hotels, apartment hotels, boarding houses, room houses. So we already actually have it.
Right. We don't have to add it, but it doesn't hurt to add it either.
The term dwelling is used elsewhere in the code, but it's not used in context of short-term rentals, if that makes sense. So we are distinguishing between dwellings and those other types of housing.
So between dwelling and, because and a property,
Right, well, a short-term rental would become a new type of property. And a long-term rental is a new type of property.
Without the dwelling definition as part of them, right? It's not in there.
Right, dwelling is used, the word dwelling is used in other parts of the code.
Got ya.
So this is just, yeah, it just says dwelling does not include short-term rentals. We're not including those. When we say dwelling elsewhere, we're not including short-term rental.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you, not being the only one that got confused on that.
Okay. Commissioner Kilgore, do you want to make your comment into the mic?
Oh, sorry, that was all.
Okay, thanks.
And just a side comment, so.
All right.
I did want to add in our internal accessory dwelling unit code, we do say that short-term rental is prohibited in an IADU.
So you can do short-term
So
rental.
you can't do an Airbnb in your basement apartment.
Okay, so now what do we want to do? Do we want to move this to the end or vote on this now?
I'd like to vote on it now if we can make a decision. That just made it all worse. And so if we can just take care of it right now, I think it'll make it worse, right? If we wait till the next, that whole conversation, I think it's going to make everything worse and we'll never make a decision on it.
Okay.
That's my thoughts, but
I think,
we can have other thoughts as well.
I think due to the time-sensitive nature of the short-term dwelling not having a definition in our code, we need to get this at least to a pending state. And if we can vote on it, we can potentially do that tonight. So I will entertain a motion at this time.
Not sure what to do.
I think you're the only one that's capable.
Now, let's give Audrey's at bat here.
Make
Let's
one?
give her a shot.
I want to try that one.
Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed amendment to Title 19, Chapters 19.02, 19.04, 19.08, and 19.20 with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Do we have a question on the motion? Do we want to add the hotel part?
That's what I was going to ask.
I have a question on the motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner Burns.
Are we adding the hotel part?
Yeah, I'll add that in.
Okay. So does the second okay with the change?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll second the second.
Then all in favor of the motion?
Could you, because you said we're adding the hotel part, could you please clarify that we're excluding hotels? from
Yes, we're excluding.
Okay.
hotels?
And that's okay with the second?
Yes.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That passes.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, on to the next item, a business item, Still Ridge, Lot 4, Tommy's Wash, site plan located 309 East Crossroads Boulevard, Evan Wagner, and Cirque Capital as applicant. And I believe that's being presented by Austin Roy this evening. Go ahead, Austin.
All right, thank you. Yes, so this is Tommy's Car Wash. It's in the regional commercial zone, address 309 East Crossroads Boulevard. This is just on the east end of town as you're coming into town over the Jordan River. You cross in on the south side of the road there. That's where this development is located. The parcel on which they want to put the car wash is 1.1 acres. This is in the regional commercial zone as mentioned earlier, but it's also in the gateway overlay. However, this applicant was submitted prior to the adoption of the gateway overlay, so those that code does not apply to this application. This is a picture of the site plan. You can see that, so to the north, it's north is on the top of the screen there. That's where the stacking lanes would be, where they would, there's 3 lanes where they would wait to use the car wash.
Vacuums would be located on the south side of the building. Entrances would be on a private drive, so on the west and the south side, there are entrances into the car wash itself. They do meet all of our parking requirements and landscaping requirements. If we move on to the landscaping requirements, you can see that here. They do provide landscaping that we've asked for, but they also do need to landscape the area north of the property, so that's right of way off of Crossroads Boulevard. It's technically not on their property, but they do need landscape. So that is shown here in the landscaping plan. This is an elevation of the building. It does meet our code as shown here. They are using primarily, all the materials meet our code. It's primarily brick and metal. They do use red as an accent color. On this screen, you can also see their signage. So the signage that you see here on the building, this does meet our code, other than the fact that if they do have illumination behind the white lettering there, they would have to change that because we do not allow white lettering. Also, in your staff, in the staff report, if you read through that, you will notice that there was another does not comply, which was they submitted a sign plan for a pedestal sign. It's a large sign. Basically, if you think of like a development like Smith's or something that has that large sign that says the Crossroads or whatever the development is, and then it has all the tenants down below. So they submitted a sign like that. The sign that they showed did not meet our code, and so in the motion that you're going to in your motion, recommended motion, there's a condition of approval that they would have to submit a new site plan that meets our code. The lighting plan, they did provide lighting plan for this. That does meet our code. They're using Arm & Bell lighting with the decorative base, black in coloring. Do you have any questions?
Is the applicant here this evening?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Then I will turn this over to the commission for question and comments. Commissioner Kilgore and then Commissioner Wilden.
I should have probably sent it in. There was just one little typo that I wanted to bring it up, but it's on page 2, in the staff conclusion paragraph near the bottom. And it just says, staff conclusion, consistent full-service car washed are a permitted use. So that, just the ED there. And then I was going to ask if since this is an administrative process, if the applicant agrees to comply with all the city planning staff's conditions in the staff packet. Do you know if they're willing to do that?
Yes, they are willing.
Okay. And then who is, I guess the land use authority is the city council, but on page 1 on the staff packet and page 6, it says the planning commission is the authority. And then page 33, it says the city council is the authority. And I'm guessing for this kind of a application, it's the city council. Just want clarification on that.
Yes, that's correct. I apologize. That is a typo on page 1. That should say city council there.
Okay, and also page 6.
And page 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I was going to ask about the does not comply for signs, but I think you addressed that. You said that they will, they're going to have to comply.
Yeah, yeah. I think that should be a condition of approval, that if they don't provide that, then they don't get approved. So they have to provide that.
All right. That's it. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Wilden.
Yeah, thank you so much, and appreciate the presentation. Great. I just had a question. As you looked at this, did you consider the traffic flow and look at it? Did you have any concerns about traffic?
That's a great question, and actually we did take that very seriously. So Dan in engineering and myself, we both looked at that and we compared it to some of our other car washes that we have around town.
it actually has more stacking space than any other car wash that we have in town. So our fears were kind of alleviated when we saw that, and we kind of, saw how many cars we could fit in there. And it's, I think it's almost double what the other one, nearest one was. I'm not positive on that, but it is more than any other.
Yeah, it was a lot. I think it was 40-something vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone, and they were counting for, I think, 23 feet per vehicle, and there is a lot.
We were considering like if they had big trucks too and stuff like that. And that's basically, they could contain all that within their property boundaries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Walden. Any other comments from the commission? I will entertain a motion.
Where is my?
All right, I'll make it. I move to recommend approval of the proposed site plan for Stillridge Plaza, Lot 4, Tommy's Car Wash at 309 East Crossroads Boulevard, and the RC zone with the findings and conditions below.
Are you going to add a condition for the sign?
Oh, do I have to add that in there?
It's
Yes.
actually.
It's already on there.
Oh, it is?
It's in that motion already, yeah.
We have a motion from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Kilgore. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes. All right, next item on the agenda this evening is River's Edge East Site Plan located 400 East Crossroads Boulevard. Bruce, is it Bastian, Ed Thomas Earl Company as applicant. This is presented by Austin Roy.
Okay, so
Would the applicants like to come up and join?
Go ahead. There's a few things I want to add to your presentation.
yeah, so we've had some, I'll just start off by saying we've had some new information presented tonight that was not presented with or submitted with the materials and not disclosed beforehand. So I'm going to go ahead and present it with what was submitted, and then we'll address those things towards the end. Okay, so this is actually fairly close to the other property. Again, this is in the Gateway overlay. It's on the east side of town, just off of Crossroads Boulevard, except this is on the north side of the road. It's directly off of Jordan River. It's on the corner of 400 East and Crossroads Boulevard. It's in the regional commercial zone. The property we're looking at today, so they have, the development is called River's Edge. There's two pieces to that. There's River's Edge West, which is on the west side of 400 East. And then there's River's Edge East. What we're looking at tonight is River's Edge East. And so it's two parcels. They're taking those two parcels and combining them and into this one development. So 5.202 acres is the larger parcel. 1.01 acres is the smaller parcel. As mentioned on the other item, this again is in the Gateway overlay, but again, they did submit this application before we adopted our Gateway overlay zone, so that ordinance does not apply. The site plan you can see here, there are three large buildings here. So these buildings are mixed use. As was submitted, these buildings have commercial uses on the main floor, residential on the upper two floors. That's as what was explained to us. You can see the property has amenities. They have a swimming pool. They have fire pits, other amenities, playground, etc. The property, so one of the things that was explained is they will have a hotel. There would be a restaurant as some of the uses on these buildings. And so that came into consideration when we were looking at the parking. So parking is based on two different things, square footage, but also use. And so we made them provide a breakdown of the parking, how much parking would be required for the hotel, how much would be required for the office space, and how much would be required for the residential and for the restaurant. And so each one of those has a different requirement, but combined all together, it was 246 parking stalls. They provide 252 parking stalls, so they do meet that requirement. They also provide 9 ADA stalls. You can see a breakdown of the buildings there. Each building is about 46,000 square feet. They're all a similar footprint and similar square footage. Landscaping, they do meet our landscaping requirements. They provide drought-tolerant plants. They do take into consideration that this is on the riverfront, so they have to take into consideration things like the riparian setback, and make sure that water line, how high the water goes and things like that is all taken into consideration. Part of their landscaping you'll see on the north there is they do have to provide screening to the north. That land is currently zoned agricultural, and so they are required to provide screening there. They do that with a fence and vegetation. This is an elevation of the buildings. Each building is very similar, if not identical, in their style. Slight variations, but they all have the same style here that you're seeing. A lot of wood, hard materials. Up on the top there, you'll see is a kind of a covered carport parking area, so they are required to provide that, and that's shown here in the elevations. As you can see, the roof line matches the roof line of the buildings on that. One of the things you'll notice on the bottom elevation there, on the right-hand side, there's stairs that go up to the units. So the units are actually accessed from the outside, but our code states that you have to have the main staircase internal. And so what they've done is they've actually put glass around that, so it is all internal. It's an internal staircase, but it comes out, and then you go to your unit on each floor. Here's these are some renderings of what the property would look like. You can see, again, the pool, fire pits, potential access to the river there. These are the materials that they'll be using. So again, there's wood, stone, kind of hardy board type material, and what the other stuff that you see there, concrete-based materials. So their lighting plan, we did require a lighting plan, and because of the size of this parking lot, they did have to provide kind of a median for pedestrians in the middle of the parking lot. So just think Walmart, how Walmart has that thing down the middle of the parking lot for people to walk. They had to do that on this project because of the size of the parking lot. The lighting does meet our requirements. They're using a lot of standards and details from the city, as well as they have some smaller lights, which all meet kind of our decorative lighting style. These buildings are, taller buildings, and so one of the concerns that staff had was, are there going to be exterior lights on the buildings that will, shine onto neighboring properties, bleed out in neighboring properties? As was explained to us, they don't have exterior lighting, so that was something that they took into consideration, being that it's along the riverfront. So tonight we talked about the short-term rental thing, and so I'm sure Sarah has more to add to that, but what they disclosed about using units up above, the residential units up above as short-term rentals, or as hotel units, I'm sorry, not short-term rentals, but it's hotel, that was not explained to us, so we did not know that, so was not reviewed in our review, and it's not in our report. That's what I have in my presentation. I don't know if Sarah has any more she'd like to add.
I did want to add to that. Those are questions that we had asked through this process as we were reviewing the distance. There's a distance requirement of hotels from existing residential zoning, and we were reviewing that, and the hotel was identified as a specific area and a specific number of units, and then there's no front desk, there's no personnel on site, and we had a lot of questions about the check-in and if this was short-term rentals or a hotel, and we were very clearly told that this was hotel, that people were going to be able to check in online and check in with their phones and use their phones as keys and things like that. And so we we're told very clearly that this was not going to be a short-term rental establishment, and that is a concern for us as a city, that changes the nature of the tenants when it changes from a hotel to a short-term rental. And then we also have a distance requirement in our code. So when they say, well, some of these upper units can be used as short-term rentals or Airbnbs or things like that, that's not something that was ever discussed or proposed or presented information that we've reviewed so far.
Okay. Would the applicant like to add anything to the presentation? Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. We'd love to. Justin Earl, 2630 Canyon Road, Springville, Utah. The comments earlier about short-term rental were just, we don't want to be mischaracterized as saying we are doing that. That's what it sounds like Austin and Sarah just said. I hope you heard me say we're exploring optionality with the operator if they wanted to flex more one way or the other. My comment earlier sounds like it was misunderstood or misconstrued. That wasn't a statement of intention or a statement of this is what's happening. It was just to understand, anyways. One thing that we wanted to bring to the attention of Sarah and Austin and the Planning Commission, we have a restaurant identified on the ground floor and professional office spaces as well as hotel rooms. And right now it's identified as 2,500 square feet for a restaurant on the farthest south. Can you go to the site plan that shows the buildings, maybe in render view?
The 3D.
There you go. Yeah, thank you. So the building farthest left, that's right along Crossroads Boulevard. That's where the new bridge is and the new light. So that space on the bottom floor against Crossroads Boulevard is going to have great visibility, great traffic, and we think that's a great spot for a restaurant. We've engaged a prominent restaurant commercial broker, and they've already brought us a few potential restaurants that are interested in the space. But every restaurant has a different square footage, different size. One was a 2,000 square foot space. Another one wanted 4,500 square feet. We're still evaluating, which restaurant is the right fit and feel for the project. So I guess a question we had is if the commission votes to approve this project at a 2,500 square foot restaurant, but we find a 4,500 square foot restaurant, do we have to come back for approvals on that so long as the parking ratios all still work? And the same question goes for the professional office space. I mean, right now we don't have the tenants identified today, but I mean, if we have groups that say, hey, we'd love to take more square footage, assuming again, parking ratios work, are we coming back every time we have a slight deviation from what's discussed tonight?
If you're proposing a change in use, so if you're proposing a larger restaurant, that is a significant change in terms of parking. So if you're proposing that retail space is now going to be restaurant space, that is a change that we have to review. If you're proposing one retail user becomes a different retail user, then that's the same parking ratio.
Okay, thank you. And then regarding additional hotel, just to be clear, this is going to be a hotel. We're talking to 3 different hotel operators. They're all hotel-like companies. They're not apartment managers that would do strictly Airbnb, Vrbo. I mentioned those 2 as sales channels out of a lot of sales channels. In fact, 70% of the bookings for 2 of the groups that we're talking to come directly through those groups' online website directly. So direct bookings are always better than Travelocity and those types of sites. I think, Sarah, we did mention that we were planning on having no staff or more kiosks, but these operators that we're talking with are actually more inclined to having that staff 24/7. which would feel a little bit more traditional like a hotel. So, I mean, this is hotel in every way, shape, and form. So the question about flexing additional units, there is a hotel buffer zone that excludes the building on the right, falls within 300 feet of the residential neighborhood across the street. So none of that building is permitted to be used for a hotel. The farthest building on the left, the first third of that building also falls within a 300-foot buffer area that excludes, does not permit hotel, which thankfully we think that's a great space for a restaurant as well. So, that's a great spot for that, which only permits about 2/3 of the left building and all of the middle building to be a hotel use. So my comment before was, if we find ourselves in a situation where we might want to flex up the occupancy for hotel units, we would only ever do that within the middle building or within that area that's permitted by the hotel buffer zone. So that's where the comment earlier, and I hope that helps clarify some of the confusion that my comment without the context might have created. So I don't know. That's kind of the additional information to share.
Can I add a couple comments? So, so a hotel is a different use than a residential. The different uses have different requirements. So when we would do our site plan review, we're reviewing, does it meet the requirements for a hotel? Does it meet the requirements for a restaurant? Does it meet the requirements for a residential unit? And so when those uses change, those requirements change. And so that's what we're trying to explain tonight, that before tonight, we didn't know that the middle building they were potentially going to use it all as hotel. That wasn't something that was disclosed to us. And so we didn't evaluate that. We didn't look at requirements, whether those requirements could or could not be met.
But we don't know that either, Austin. We're just trying to understand what the implications are from the last item for potential future flexibility and maneuverability given market conditions. We're not saying we're changing our plan or changing our submission at this time.
And maybe it makes sense to pull from the agenda tonight, table it, and come back with, hey, what if the whole middle building was hotel, and you can do an evaluation of that. I don't know.
So there is a concern about a short-term rental established that's unmanned, that you just go in and out with kiosk cards and things like that. So there's a safety concern and a long-term impact on the nature of that. So and then we had been assured that wouldn't be the case. So we're just hearing something different tonight.
No, I think I actually just confirmed that we're going to have full-time on-site. So I don't know how you heard me.
You didn't. You said it's possible. You said that several of he said that some of them that they're talking to.
All three of the operators we're talking to have full-time on.
But that's not a confirmation. You don't have a contract.
I'm wondering, it's been suggested that we maybe continue this item. I think maybe that's probably the best option, because right now it seems like staff is going back and forth, which is probably not a productive thing to do in a planning commission meeting. So we need something a little bit more concrete before we act on it. That's my feelings right now. Commissioner Kilgore, I'll go ahead and let you make a comment.
Yeah, I would like to still ask questions, though.
Okay.
Questions before we, just because it might contribute to the conversation.
Yeah, I think it's great to ask questions. I think what's throwing us off a little bit is just previous conversations versus tonight's conversations and direction we've gotten and concerns we've gotten from our city council, and then we're hearing anyhow. So it's just to have a plan that says specifically this is the hotel, and then these are not hotel, and now they're saying might be hotel or might not be hotel. So that's just different information, a different review in terms of, is it meeting all the requirements? And then we're hearing different things about whether there's going to be personnel or not. And some of those things were concerns that were brought up through this process. There were some work sessions with the council, and those are items that were brought up.
Okay. I was going to suggest work sessions with the council, but they've already had them.
Well, but if the proposal has changed, then they haven't. So, so they had work sessions on you know, a specific number of hotel units and what that looked like.
I go ahead and allow Commissioner Kilgore to, because we've finished the presentation now, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so I'll let Commissioner Kilgore ask his questions and then Commissioner Burns ask her questions, and then we'll go from there.
So this is the administrative, well, I don't know if I can pass that at this point. Well, it is an administrative process, so I always ask, does the applicant agree to comply with the city planning staff's conditions in the staff packet? But at least as far as it is right now. Yeah, I guess, yeah, okay. I mean, if it changes it, I'll ask again anyway. So I was wondering, when residential, because I didn't know it was a hotel. I just thought it was residential. Yeah, because at least in the packet, it just says residential above and commercial below. So in cases like that, which is a great way to use buildings, and but when residential is over commercial use, do we make accommodations for the residents for open space, recreational amenities, et cetera, as if it was like a residential zone? Or is it treated more as a commercial zone? So what happens to things like open space and play areas and all that stuff? Because those are different between residential and commercial,
It's a
right?
good question. So it's in the regional commercial zone, so it's treated as a commercial property. So we look at the landscaping, doesn't meet the landscaping requirements of a commercial property. However, because it does have residential, were required to provide amenities. And so that's something that was considered in this.
So when we require the amenities, we use the amenities, the chart and the table and all that, and apply it to the property then. So that way the residents don't lose out on the kinds of things they could expect if they were in a regular residential zone. Is that how we?
Yeah, I mean, it's to provide a quality of living for potential residents of that area. Yeah.
So it's still generally regional commercial, but then
that's
since
the
there are
underlying
residents,
zone.
we do require those amenities. I mean, what is required there looks really good, but I was just wondering if that's something that we do make sure that the residents get the same kind of stuff that they could expect if they were in a residential zone.
Yeah, it's a great point. And yeah, we've been looking at staff a separate but not sort of related item, mixed waterfront. We've been looking at that a lot lately, and we're trying to, one of the things we're looking at, how do you balance mixed use and open space and, those two things.
Right, and I mean, I think it's great when you have commercial under the residential. A lot of great downtowns have it that way. But I've just wondered how we treat the amenities and that kind of stuff. And I guess it would fall to the zone, but then you've got the residential there. So I know it's mixed use, but I'm just wondering how we calculate that. What do we do to make sure that the residents get some kind of?
Yeah. So they did have to meet a series of amenities, and I didn't put it in the packet, but. On the site plan, you can see that they have several features. They have a trail that goes along the Jordan River. One of the things that the city, foresees is having a trail that goes along the river there. So we wanted to make sure that was part of it. Mm-hmm. That is a requirement. And then they have to provide, so they have pergolas and fire pits and those kind of things. So it does provide kind of a green space, if you will, area where people can go and enjoy the outdoors.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I wonder if that's something maybe we have to look at later. Just because, if it's a residential, if it's a regional commercial, then I think we only require like 20% open space, right? Is that right? And so technically you could just say have 20% open space, but that may not meet the needs of a residential, population. So maybe that's something that we could look at later. But I do like what was provided. I mean, I think that's really cool. I just didn't know if the city had, we could say, yeah, we need to put some amenities there, but what do we use for that? Do we use the residential amenities chart, or do we say 20% open space? You could do what you want with it.
Yeah, it is actually something we want to look at as we've applied it. It's not that clear for this, because this is a regional commercial zone, and then it allows the residential above, and it wasn't that clear. So it is something that we'll be bringing forward to make it more clear. But as far as this goes, we did apply what we have, But they do have a reasonable amenity package.
Okay. Yeah, and at the same time, residents who choose to live there shouldn't expect that they get everything that someone who lives in a residential zone might get either. So it could be a compromise, one way or the other. But I was just interested in knowing what the city right now applies. So,
Yeah,
but-
and it's interesting because this is probably the first time we've had a product like this in Saratoga Springs, and so our code is we've never looked at something like this through our code. So our code, we applied the code that we had. They met that code as far as our staff report was concerned. But yeah, I mean, maybe we need to look at our code for future developments that come.
Okay. And then, so I saw that the gateway overlay was considered, and it doesn't apply because the application came in before the code was approved. What about the waterfront overlay? Is there a waterfront overlay for the Jordan?
Yes.
There should be for the Jordan River, right? So,
Yes,
but I didn't see
correct.
any mention of the waterfront overlay.
So yes, this is in the waterfront overlay. They did have to meet those requirements. So it's part of the reason why it's landscaped the way it is on the east side, and the part of the reason why it has the trail there is because of those waterfront requirements. So we did review that. That is part of our checklist that we went through. So if you go through your staff report, look at the checklist, you'll see that we looked at the waterfront area. And so that was something evaluated. Actually, the parking that they have is only allowed because they are in the waterfront area. If they would have been just in the standard regional commercial area, we would have made them put that parking behind the building or to the side.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that. It was in the packet. I didn't see it. So, but that answers my question. Terrific. And then how do we as a city deal with flex spaces where the use isn't identified? And, because it's flex, so that's why they can't really identify sometimes. And then some uses might conflict with the code requirements based on, what the flex ends up being, at least for a while, because it may change again, depending on the lease and such. So how do we deal with that? Because I could totally see the issues with parking and such. I don't really have a problem with the idea that, if you're expecting a 2,000 square foot hotel or restaurant, and then you want to expand it to 4,000 or whatever it is, then of course we need more parking. So I could understand that. But if it's a flex space, we don't really know, what it's going to be. So do we have a flex space parking? I don't remember seeing that, or?
We have them, so you can see the parking table on this exhibit here, and they're calling out residential and a certain amount, and then professional office, hotel, and restaurant. So those are the categories that we've evaluated it on. If somebody comes in later and they want to change, their professional office to a restaurant, we would do a change they would be required to submit a permit, and we would reevaluate parking. That's after the building's built. So in this situation, they do need to be showing us accurate information. So if that information is changing, like a bigger restaurant or a bigger hotel, we need that information at this time.
Okay. All right, and then the carports, I saw the elevation for the carports. So I saw that elevation. Where does that go on the in the parking area? Because I didn't see where that is.
Let's see, I think, you can see it, yeah. So you can kind of see it on the 3D render here.
No.
Where the swimming pool is, if you look just above that, that's part of the covered
Those are
parking.
carports. Okay.
Can you go to the site plan?
Yeah.
So is it this whole area here?
Yeah,
All
the
of
middle parking stalls. So not on the edges, but the
entire
middle.
here?
Oh, so, okay, that's what I didn't see. So that's where the carports would be? Okay, and why are there carports? Who's that for?
Well, it's required in the code. They
For
have
the
to-
residents, for the
Because there's
residential.
residential units.
And people are going to know that, people who park there, that those are reserved for residents?
I mean, they'd probably have to mark it. It's a unique property. I don't know, I don't know how parking enforcement is done. That's not something that we looked at in our report.
Okay. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Burns.
I really like this property. I really think this is a great asset to Saratoga, and I think that we do need to have some hotel space. I understand where staff's coming, where, you're trying to balance everything and make sure that we have the right information. And I appreciate that we are getting that information as well. I had a couple of questions with the stair areas. Are those heated and cooled, or are they open to the elements? I know they have a roof and they have a side glass.
They're enclosed from the weather, but they're not climate controlled.
Okay. And then so I don't understand how you can have a buffer zone for a hotel and have a hotel and residential in the same area. Is the buffer zone for other property, or it's?
It is, it's for adjacent property.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay.
For residential zone.
The idea is you don't want to have a hotel too close to someone's residential, to their home, right?
Yeah, no, I remember when that came on and why it did.
No, I understand your question. You're saying we're putting within the plan, we're putting residential right by the hotel. So I understand your question. And yeah, the code does say adjacent. So, yeah.
Mostly I just had the question about the stairs. I appreciate that this is this mixed zone and that we're really moving into new territory and figuring out all of the small ways that this works out. And it's going to be a pain. I get it. And I appreciate that you guys are just working through this. I think that this is a great asset to our city. And I know that it would be used by our family in the restaurant and the hotel part. So I like it a lot. And I think there's obviously some things need to be worked out, but I just want to state that I really do like this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barton, or Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Barton's next.
I actually don't have a lot. I think that honestly, we should probably just table this like we talked about. My number one thing is I had zero idea there was a hotel. When I hear of mixed use, I think of everything else you see around where it's the commercial on the bottom and the residential on the top. So that whole thing blew me out of the water. I'm like, wait, this is not what, when you read the definition of mixed use, hotel doesn't even come into your mind, right? And as you drive around and stuff like that, I don't know if I've ever even seen something like that, right? And there's probably things out there, maybe not in Utah. I know there's a lot of mixed use in Utah. They don't do fantastic here. I was involved in the construction industry for a really long time, and Salt Lake City maybe, but when you put it in little cities like this, I'm not against it necessarily, but I think they have a hard time. Orem has one. It's finally doing okay. Bountiful's does not so great. I mean, it's a hard use, I feel like, in Utah. Not that we shouldn't have this in here, because I'm not against it. I'm just saying it's kind of hard. But I don't know. I have not enough information to even go through it tonight, so I shouldn't even comment on anything. Just saying that mixed use, when I saw this, I'm like, wait, had no idea it was a hotel. I literally thought it was stuff on the bottom like they usually do in residential on top. And so this is a whole new, there's no way we can vote on this or anything like that. Obviously, with everything else, it's crazy.
Thank you, Commissioner Barton.
That was a little much, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Kilgore, I'll let you go.
I just want to echo your comments. I agree. Just at least with the renderings, it looks beautiful, and I think with so much missed opportunities that we've had in our city, since we have a lot of waterfront, but we haven't really developed it for the commercial. And I like the idea that it's it's not quite a boardwalk, but it's like a boardwalk type of walk. I mean, for a river, I think that's a really great idea. And then you have potentially with the restaurant and such, I hope it gets a lot of use. What a great place to go and then be able to see the river and enjoy the view and things like that. So it's better than just a whole row of houses like where I live. I appreciate where I live, but it's great that it's a place where we could gather, and it's not limited to just the residents.
Yeah, to that point, I mean, I don't remember, someone said that we had adequate amenities. I mean, this is way more amenitized than a typical residential, intentionally, because we're catering to a hospitality level of execution. We want someone to come and stay at the hotel and say, wow, it's not a huge Four Seasons or whatever, but man, I'm on the river. I can look out and see Timpanogos that'll never be taken away from me. I can see the Wasatch Mountains. The units that are further away from the road, it'll be quiet. There's a large swimming pool. Our partners in the project, own Western Timber Frame. They're the largest pergola manufacturer in the country. I mean,